This video is a continuation of the Expression Builder Basics video and covers more advanced functions that are available to use in the Expression Builder. And the focus will be on how to format numbers converted to strings, the different types of string functions that are available, and also the syntax for pattern matching string functions. Many times you will be working with large numbers that you would like to display. However, you would like to format them differently so that they're smaller and more readable. So to do this, you would use the string conversion function, which is covered in the Expression Builder's basic video, which is simply just the word string, and then in parentheses you put the number or the field. In this case, it's just called number, that you want to format, and then the format specification, so how you want it to be formatted. Now, by default, if you leave this, if you take out the comma and the format specifications, by default, the number will be formatted in decimal notation. So besides decimal notation, which if you add the format specs for that, it is just % lowercase f. But you can also format the number to be displayed in scientific notation with a lowercase e, scientific notation with the capital E for the exponent. Or lastly, you can use %g, which will, depending on the value of each row, it'll put it into decimal notation or scientific notation. And this will depend on which is smaller. So this example down here, I want to convert this number field to scientific notation. So I use a string function, put the field, comma, and then the format specifications in quotes. And you can see that this number, 161,300,000, will be displayed as 1.613000 10 to the 8th power. So in this example, you see that the way I have it formatted right now, it's actually longer than the original value. So in order to specify how many places are after the decimal point, you have to add a period and then a number for the number of places you want. And you put that between the % sign and the letter. So if I modify my original example and put a period and a 2 between the % and the E, this tells me, or tells the Expression Builder, that I want two places after the decimal point. So now this 161,300,000 will be displayed as 1.61 10 to the 8th. And if you just put the period and don't put a number, that means that you don't want any decimal places. So if I did that, it would just be 2 times 10 to the 8th. So let's do an example in the software. So maybe I want to convert this sales revenue field to be in, to use the G format specification. So whichever smaller decimal or scientific notation, that's what will be used. So I go to Tools, open the Expression Builder, and I only have one table in this project, E fashion. So I'm going to create another field, sales rev, and I can, if I know the function, I can type it in myself, or I can find it from these drop-down menus. So functions, conversion, string, and so now I need to find the sales revenue field, which again I can type in or I can select from here, double click, and then this is where I put in the format. So I'm going to delete this, and I need quotes and a % sign, and then I want 2 decimal places, so I'm going to go .2 and then lowercase g, and then close the quotes and click Evaluate. And so I get a preview of what my numbers are going to look like. So this was shorter than decimal notation, so it shows this. In this case, the sales, the decimal notation is smaller than scientific. So that's how you format a number, and just click OK. Now, there may also be situations where you need to have a number be the same number of characters in every row. So you can also add characters to the front of numbers, either spaces or zeros. And so to do that, you just add the length, the number, I guess, of zeros or spaces you want the resulting field to contain between the percent sign and the period. So if I wanted to use spaces to pad this number, and say I wanted 15, every number to be 15 characters long. So I would just do the percent, and then 15, the number I want, period, and then F. So I'm still going to format it as a decimal notation. I'm just adding spaces between it. To use zeros to pad a number, you simply put 0 before the length. So again, taking the same example, if I just add a 0 in front of the number of characters that I want, the resulting number will have, in this case, 12 zeros and then the rest of the number, because there's 3 places, so 15 total. Now there are several functions that are specifically meant to be used with fields that are strings by default. And these functions allow you to parse out a portion of the value of a field or remove a portion. You can also match values of a field or match a portion of the value. And you can also convert some string fields to all lowercase letters. So to convert a string field to all lowercase letters, you use the lower function, which is simply you just type lower and put the field in parentheses. And so, for example, if you had a state abbreviation and you use lower function on it, the capital A, capital L would just be all lowercase, A and L. You can also match a portion or an entire value of a field using the match function. So you would simply type match, the field you are matching, and the pattern or value you're looking for. And so if the pattern matches the value in the field, a 1 is returned. If it does not, a 0 is entered. So for example, say you wanted to flag, you're a retailer and you wanted to flag all of your items that are belts. And you didn't want to have to type out the whole name. You could use the match function. So you would just use product item is the field, and comma, and then what I want to match is the word belt. So you put the word belt in parentheses or in quotes. And so patchwork leather belt, the software recognizes that belt matches the pattern, and a 1 is returned. And everything else, so zippered sweatshirt would just have a 0. Then there is the substring function, which returns part of a string expression. And the part that's returned begins at the start position, which is the second entry between the parentheses, and for a length of characters, which is put last. And if you omit the length portion, you will just get the portion of the string that starts at the start position and all characters that follow. But so for example, if you had a field for quarter and it had the year and quarter, like so, and you just wanted to get the quarter out, you could use the substring function. So you would type substring, the field, which is quarter, the start position, which is 5, because if you count the characters until the start of the quarter portion of the string expression, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for a length of 2, so 1, 2. So since Q1 is at the end, I could have left out the comma in this 2 and I would have gotten the same result. Then we also have a sub function, which allows you to replace a portion of a string field or remove a portion. So what it does is it matches the pattern, and if the pattern matches, it replaces it with the replacement for the first occurrence. So if you wanted to completely remove a portion, you would just do quotes and have no characters entered in between them, like in this example here. So if I had stores, and my store's eFashion, but I just wanted to get the location, I didn't want to have this in front of every location, I could remove it by using the sub function. So it would be sub, and the field that I'm removing the pattern from, and the pattern is eFashion, and then a space. Because I don't want to have the space in front of the location, and so I want to replace it with nothing. So I would just put 2 quotes, and so eFashion San Francisco. The result would just be San Francisco. Now the gsub function is very similar to the sub function. The only difference is that it matches the pattern with the replacement for all occurrences. So for example, if you had a product category field and you had one value that was hats, gloves, and scarves, and maybe you wanted to try it and make it a little smaller and just use dashes and get rid of the space and comma, you could use the gsub function. So again, you put the field that you're replacing or matching and what you're looking for. So in this case, I'm looking for a comma and a space, and I want to replace it with just a dash. So now the gsub function finds this pattern that occurs everywhere in the string. So there's one right here and one right here. So you can see that 2 replacements were made. Now all of these string functions can be combined with other functions or expression builder syntax. So for example, you can use these with if-then statements, which are covered in the expression builder basics video. You can do all sorts of things. So let's do an example in the software. So in this data sheet, I have some information about all the different stores, and I also have a store ID here. And as you can see, some of the IDs have an M at the front, followed by several zeros and the actual unique numbers that identify each store. However, some do not have the M in front and are only 2 digits. And maybe I want to format these so they're uniform. They're all the same format with just 2 digits. So, and I also want to make this an integer field. So I can do that by using an if-then statement combined with the match function and the substring function. So I'm going to open the expression builder, and I'm just going to call this ID. And I'm using an if-then statement, so I need to type if first. And next I'm going to use the match function because I want to match those IDs that have an M in it. So I type match, and then I add the store ID from the drop-down menu here, store ID. And so I want to match the letter M. So I just put the M in quotes, close the parentheses. So if the store ID has an M in it, then I want to delete the M. And if I just deleted the M using the substring function, the output would still be a string field, and I would still get the zeros in front. So I want to convert the ID with the M deleted into an integer. So I'm going to use the int operator, which is covered again in the expression builder basics video, to convert the output that is going to be a string to an integer. So I put the parentheses, and now I need to use the substring function. So I'm going to do sub string and parentheses, and then I need the store ID And so I want to start in the second position, and then I want everything else after it. So I'm going to leave out the length and close the parentheses, and then close the parentheses for the integer operator. So then else, if the ID does not contain an M, then I just need to convert the field to an integer. So else integer int operator store ID, and click evaluate. And so you can see now the IDs that had M's in the beginning now are formatted to just a 2-digit number. Now, as you saw in the previous examples in this video, these string functions can match just a straight phrase, pattern of letters or characters, numbers, etc. But there are times when you would like to define a pattern that allows for variance within each value of the pattern. So there's this particular syntax that's used for this, and it's used, again, just solely for defining the pattern to match, and the syntax can be used for the match function, the sub function, or the gsub string functions. So one syntax you can use is to define a set. So you can match a set of letters or numbers. So to do that, you would just put in brackets the range of numbers you want to match. So this means that I'd want to match values that have a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 in them. Or you can use letters. So this would match fields that have a capital A, B, or C, or a lowercase a, b, or c in it. So for example, maybe you have a field that if the value is missing, they still put the number of spaces for the number of characters that compose the field. So and then it displays in charts as looks like it's missing, or there's still it's just blank. So you want to display the dash for null values. So you'd have to you could use the match function and define the pattern as a set of letters. So in this example here, if the product SKU matches A through Z, so if there's letters, and any letter, if there's any letter in the value, then you want the product SKU to be in the resulting field. Else, so if there's no letters, you just want it to be missing. So here, there were spaces because there was no product SKU. So now the output will just be nothing, and the null value or null bar, or whatever you have the null set to, will display for this category. And so then this has letters, so it's just the same thing. The output's the same as the original field. Now you can also use a wildcard character, and this matches any character in the target sequence. So it can be a letter, punctuation, numbers, etc., anything. Now you can also add a repetition count to any element, and the repetition count goes behind the element that you are defining the repetition for. So if you just, and to define the repetition, you use these brackets, and if you just put a number here, the min, so if I just put a 2 in the brackets behind an element, it would say that that element needs to be repeated twice, and that's what would be matched. If the element can be a minimum, maybe 2 to infinity, you would just use the min, comma, nothing in the brackets. Now, if the element can be there or not as many times as you want, you can use a star. If the element can be in the pattern once or to infinity, you just use a plus. And if the character can only be in the pattern not at all or once, you use a question mark. And you can use parentheses around the whole pattern that you're matching if the whole pattern has a repetition, and put the repetition count behind that. So for this example, maybe the product SKU has some letters and then a series of numbers, and maybe the numbers don't really mean much to you and you just want the letters. So what you can do is use repetition to get rid of the numbers. So I would use a sub-function. The field is product SKU. And so you can see I have these parentheses here and here. So this encompasses this whole pattern. So this is saying that wherever there's a space and a number, two numbers in this case, because here's the repetition. And so this whole pattern, the space and 2 digits, this can be at least once to infinity, repeated, and then I want to replace it with nothing. So here's space, 2 digits, space, 2 digits, space, 2 digits, and the output is just the letters. Now, some more additional syntax for defining the pattern. There are anchors that you can use, and the upward pointing caret matches the beginning of a target sequence, and so you would place this at the very front of the pattern or sequence that you're matching. You can also match a sequence or pattern at the end of a field. So to do that, I use a $sign. And again, the $sign goes at the very back of the pattern or sequence that you're matching. So let's get into some more examples. You can do lots of things with these functions, but most of the time you will want to use the syntax for the sub-function. So for example, you may want to remove everything after the first word in a field. Maybe it's really long and just the first word is all you need. So you could use the sub-function and then you put in this case it's the product item is the field that we're going to remove everything but the first word from. And so the pattern is that after the first word there's a space and there's a character. It could be a letter, a number, any sort of punctuation. So that's what this period represents. It's the wildcard character. And this star means that this wildcard character can be repeated 0 to infinite number of times. And we are matching this pattern at the end of the expression. So that's what the $sign is. And then I'm replacing it with nothing, just 2 quotes, nothing in between. And so this, if this is the value of the field, 1 meter feathered boa, you can see that there's a space after the first word, and there's characters, and there's several, and it's at the end. So that matches this pattern, and the output would just be 1 meter. Now there also may be times when you need to remove unseen spaces from the end of values in a field. Sometimes databases add spaces to account for the maximum number of characters that are allowed in that field. And this can create problems if you're trying to match a specific field or trying to match a specific field. And so if you say if I would say if product item code equals SFAS or so on, it would not match. It would not, this value would not be flagged as matching because of the spaces after it. So you want to get rid of those. And so again, you use a sub-function, and again, the field is product item code, and I want to match where there's a space, and then this +sign means that there's 1 to infinite spaces after. and I want to replace it with nothing. So 2 quotes and nothing in between. So this SFAS space, space, space will be just SFAS, no spaces, because this pattern matches this space here, and then the plus sign indicates that these the rest of the spaces are part of the pattern as well. So you can also have match very long patterns. It can be as long as it needs to be. So again, maybe you have an appeal program where you send appeals to customers to come back to you. And each appeal can be can vary in length of the name can vary in length, but each one has a timestamp by default. But for display purposes, this isn't useful, and it doesn't really tell me anything, and it'll just make the labels very hard to read. So I want to remove this timestamp. So I can do that using the syntax used for string functions. So again, I'm using the sub function. The field is appeal. And the pattern I'm matching goes from this space all the way to the end. So space, and the type of character that I'm matching is a number. And so months can be 1 or 2 digits. So I indicate that the repetition of, or the number of numbers can either be 1 or 2. And then the slash, and then the day. So the day of month can be, it's a number, so that's what this indicates, and it can be 1 or 2 digits. So I have the repetition count, 1 or 2, slash, and then the year. So again, it's numbers, and the year is always 4 digits. So I just put the 4 in the brackets. And space, because there's a space between the date and time. And so the hour is a number, so that's what this indicates. And the hour can either be 1 or 2 digits. So I have 1 or 2 in brackets, colon, and then the minutes. And the minutes are always shown with 2 characters, so I have just 2 in brackets. And then colon, and then again numbers for the seconds, and they're always 2. The seconds are always displayed with 2 digits, so I have the 2 repetition count, space, and then so it can be AM or PM. I just decided to make it easy on myself and say that it can be any capital letter, and there's always going to be 2. So that's what this 2 indicates. And then the $sign to indicate that I'm matching this at the end of the sequence. And then the replacement is nothing, so just double quotes. And so this all matches, and the result is it's completely deleted from the field, and you're left with the name of the appeal. So that was a more complicated example, but let's do one more in the software. Let's pull this up. So maybe what's really descriptive in my case is just the last letter of the field. So maybe I want to create another level of detail for drilling down into the product item. So maybe I want to look at the jewelry is all, or accessories can be hats, jewelry, or anything, and I want to see what exactly that jewelry is. Is it a necklace? Is it a bracelet? And that's the last letter of the product item field. So I can use a sub function for this. So I'm going to open my expression builder, and I'm going to call this product, just product. I don't have a field name that yet. And so I'm going to use a sub function, parentheses, and I need, what is it? Product item is the field that I'm going to remove words from, comma. And so the pattern is that I'm looking for a pattern at the front of the field, so I'm going to add the anchor to match the front. And then the pattern is going to be a word and then a space. So, and that can be repeated several times. So I need to put the parentheses around the whole pattern that's going to be repeated. And so it's going to be letters, and it can be lowercase or uppercase. So I'm going to do the A through Z, and close that. And so it can be any number of letters, so I'm going to add the plus sign. So I'm saying there has to be at least one letter, and they can go to infinite. And so then there's always a space after the word, before the last word. And then I'm going to close this. And the number of words in each product item field varies a lot, so I'm just going to put an infinite. 0 through infinite. So maybe, for example, if you look here, this blazer, it is only one word. So this can be 0 to infinite, so this keeps this word. And then I just close, and I want to replace this with nothing. So just 2 quotes, and close the expression. And then I click Evaluate. And you can see that I'm left with just the last word of each product item field. So I'm going to click OK. And now I just want to put up a bar chart and get a preview of this field. So I called it just product. I'm going to display horizontally. And well, so you can see here that my pattern didn't account for the first word having a dash. So I can edit this field and adjust that so it accounts for the dash. So to do that, I am going to find my field that I calculated. And so now I need to add in the dash. So I'm going to still keep this plus sign after the letters, but now I'm going to add the dash. So there can be a dash, and there can also not be one. So I use the question mark after this because that defines repetition as 0 or 1. And now I need to add the letters again because there's always going to be another word after the dash. So again, I do the A through Z, close, and again, there can be an infinite number of letters. So I'm going to add the plus. And then I can click Evaluate, and you can see that now all the products with a dash in the first word have now updated to just be the last word of that value. And click OK.